Okay, so first thing first, I would like to say thank you for the Indie Jam having me here today. So to be honest, this is my first time to joining the Indie Jams. And to be honest, before the sessions, I tried to consult some of the teammates and say, hey, if I could give a talk in this event, what usually the indie dev students or the developer would like to learn about the AAA journey, right? So I asked one of my programmer friend, and he said like, nothing, nothing. So I'm pretty upset by the time, but fair enough because I'm asking 5 to 6 years experience programmers, all right? So after I consult with Natalie, I know mostly it's the students or the fresh developer in the game industry, all right? So today, I will be sharing my experience from AAA outsourcing experience and then how I translate into a core development team. So throughout this journey, I realized when we talk about AAA, we might thought it's very different from the indie side. But actually, the indie spirited is very helpful for us to translate and grow for this team. So this is not about modelings or just purely on the art. So even though my background is as a modeling artist, but I will walk you through with my perspective how I see all this growth happening within our team. Right, so first thing first, who am I? So my name is Yipson. I have been working in this industry for more than 15 years. So in my first 2 years, I worked most likely like a generalist, mainly on the TVC and commercial industry. And my second years, so my team, Passion Republic, we try to shift focus towards the game outsourcing industry. So through then, we start to focusing more on involving more in the game developments and be a partnership on our external side. So currently, I'm the head of modeling department at Passion Republics. So I wasn't too sure if anyone know about Passion Republics. You know? Ah, you know. Ah. That's right, Gigabash. Yes. So, but I'm not from the Gigabash team, all right? So basically, in Passion Republics, we have two different entities, which is Passion Republics and Passion Republic Games. All right? So just now, one of the audience mentioned about Gigabash is our first IP. All right? We are first IP that we are fully made in local, and then we publish and release it in like few years ago. So my background is mostly from the external part, which is servicing on the AAA game for all these clients in the past. Where different entity we call Passion Republic Games is mostly focusing on our own IP, our self-publishing games, which make our first IP, which called Gigabash. All right, so I hope you guys won't be disappointed if I'm not sharing too much about Gigabash because I'm not from that team particularly. Right, so like what Ying shared just now, we are all within the Southeast Asia region. So actually we are a lucky group of artists or people in this region. The reason why, because from we growing up, we consume a lot of different culture, entertainments, and influencing from Westerns, Japans, right? So having said that, our team is having this ecosystem that allowed everyone to fulfill their goal that if they have any ambitious ideas to contribute in the AAAs, in Western games, or even making their own game locally, we're allowed to grow this team in that way. Sorry. Right, so let's talk about transitions. Like I mentioned, when I first joined the industry as a generalist, I know nothing about game, to be honest. I'm graduate as a digital animation student. I'm focusing more on the animations, pre-renderings, which is not on real-time game engine. So the transition from asset-centric to the feature-centric actually is very, very challenging. All right. So of course, throughout the whole transitions, we still serve the same vision, which is supporting both client and our internal IP to make the good products, make the good games. So to break down even more, so I just picked some of my highlight, the game that I've been involving in the past. So the first one is like Dark Souls 3. So when I first get into the AAA game projects, I'm involving in this project as an artist. So mainly just create asset, follow exactly on the concept art, make the perfections on the asset, and then deliver to the clients. But throughout the years, I start to gain more experience, and then we start to have more ambitions that we want to involve more. We want to make games. We want to learn about the process. Then we move on to my second turnover in terms of my careers, where I start to focus more on the environment and the world building, which is where I have the chance to work with Naughty Dog projects, which is The Last of Us Part 2. So this is slightly different when I start to transit from just an artist and then became the project lead. So as a project lead, I start to learn more about the games. Besides just directing on completing the asset, I need to learn more about the game visions, what we could leverage as a team. And later on, I step out as head of departments and the art leads within my departments. We start to focus more integration in terms of the developments. So later on, when we contribute more in terms of the Diablo and also Mortal Kombat 1, we start to focus more on the feature. What does it mean the feature means? We are required to, let's say, create the full set of assets or data that require for, let's say, the final execution move that involve like animations, modelings, some sort of like storyboard, right? So this is where we start to involve more that we feel like, oh, actually this is the right learning curve, all right? Of course, the transitions doesn't sound like what I mentioned just now, like so smooth, like, okay, you start as an artist in the beginning, then you learn more about game development, then you get the chance to involve more, then you do more, then you improve. It's not like that. So this is a few challenges that I could conclude throughout the whole 10 years in the past. The first thing first is like mindsets. The second thing is like the approaches that we deal with the projects or the clients. First is our mindset in the past 10 years who focusing more on delivery oriented. Means we so much get used to make things look very, very perfect. It's not good enough, it's not perfect, we won't accept that as the final submissions. But we all know in game, this is not the case. Game isn't about perfections. It's about the right options, the right take that make the whole product and the experience more immersive. So towards the end of the learning progressions, we start to learn more about how to shift our mindset toward more process-oriented. So process-oriented will allow you to have more collaborations. For example, just now when I mentioned when we involve in the final execution moveset for Mortal Kombat 1, it's required for a lot of collaboration and talking in between different artists. For example, if I'm the modeling artist, I would like to know how detailed that I would like to apply on this model. But I cannot just guess. I need to communicate and ask, let's say, the storyboard artists or the animators, like, how this character gonna appear in the scene? Will it be like close up on the head or the bust? This is where we get to have the idea that, okay, this is where I should focus more, right? So this is the major difference that make us grow. And secondly is the autonomous mindset. So I know it's something like very big words. Even I share with my teams like, okay, we need to improve our autonomous. I believe not a lot of you guys totally understand what is this, right? Like anyone can explain to me like what is like autonomous in the simple words? Anyone want to give a try? Self-initiative. That is pretty close. I think this is one of the keywords. Any more trying? Sorry? Independence. Right. It sounds very right. Right. So, to be honest, there's a lot of definition about autonomous. All right? Independence, reflections, and then like collaborative. But I would like to pick just one of the example here is like, basically we can boil it down to a simple question to asking ourselves. What should you do whenever you've been testing on any task within any game development process? and also what can you do. All right? Then we try to find a sweet spot pretty much in between here. All right? Cool. So for example, a quick for example, so if I'm an artist who just been tasking to work on just the animations, I will just focus 120% on animations. But I might not care so much about how it turns out in the game, how's the optimization, will it be like too heavy or will it be like run too far from the style of the game, then this is not the right autonomous mindset. So what you can do, it doesn't mean that you need to learn everything, but at least you have this mindset that I start to care like, okay, what I should do is this thing, but if I pass down to the another one in the process, will it be creating some problems? What could I improve further? Then I can just ask like, okay, what do you think about these animations or these models appear in the games? If they have some answer like, okay, maybe you can tweak this and that, then this is where you have a pretty much like a collaboration and start to practice your autonomous mindset. And of course, if you want to understand more like, okay, I kind of understand the concept like how should I improve the autonomous and how it could help for the game development process. But I really want to know the way like how can I improve. So I try to break down to like 3 steps. The first one is, like I say, proactive updates. Updates on your status wherever you feel like, oh, I'm struggle, I'm not understand. I believe there's a lot of like fresh graduates or students that are gonna be a developer in the future. When you encounter some blocker and challenges, don't just keep for yourselves, right? I know it's quite, intimidating when you feel like, oh, there's a lot more seniors or experienced developer within my team that I should learn from them, but I shouldn't just ask like that. That's not right. So you should always proactively update your status if you have some blockers or issue, and then we could discuss and escalate out on the right time. So this is where we learn about, okay, if I'm going to do certain things right now with my understanding, it might create a problem in the next phase. The next thing is try to learn and understand more about the full game development pipeline. So myself as a generalist background, I tend to specialize more on modelings. But throughout my career, I need to keep learning about the full game making process. This doesn't mean that I need to able to handle every task, but at least I know what is the next step or what is the next steps that I should look for the right person to discuss and figure out a better way. So after you learn all this knowledge about the full dev pipeline, lastly, is definitely you need to develop a T-shape skills. Yes, I'm glad that you're curious about the T-shape skill, because at first I thought people would be like, what is this about? But anyway, there's not just about T-shape skill. They do have other shapes of skills like X shapes, cone shapes, right? I shape. But why particularly T-shape is very, very helpful for game development process, I will explain later on. All right, so look at this diagram here. Like I mentioned, expertise will take time for you to learn and practice and gain the knowledge, right? But whenever we work on the projects or certain feature for any clients or any projects or any games, definitely everyone have different expertise and knowledge. But how to group them together, work closely as a team, the T-shaped knowledge play a very important role, which means everyone have your role and responsibility, which is the verticals bar of the T. The I shapes is experts about you are good in one thing. That is very, very important. But at the same time, the horizontal bar means the generalist mindset and the knowledge. To be honest, if you have this understanding, it will help you better to reduce like a lot of conflict in terms of discussions. All right. So, for examples, in my team, certain young artists, they might not fully understand, okay, how procedural works, right? So sometimes when they critique something, they might expect things will just happen like that because they doesn't know the process. So if they know how certain procedures happens in terms of the pipeline, they could have the right expectation, they could write the right keywords. All right. So another example is recently I realized one of my teammates in Passion Republics, he is a modeling artist. He's supposed to just focus on doing modeling. This is what he should do. But what he can do, I believe everyone doesn't know your limitations. So don't limit yourself. So just be curious. So one day, the artist been done with his work. He's done with the modeling task. So he just look around, talk around. Then he realized what actually blocking the development process now is about the story. But he's not the story narrative designer. So what he can do? At least he go and talk to the designer, try to understand what is the main blockers. And then just at the right time, he also one of the fans of certain lore that the designer is like struggling now. Then he can provide a lot of information, they brainstorm, and even he take the full responsibility to write his own lore and design and collab with the designers. All right. So looking at these examples, I know he has the expertise in modeling, just the 3D part, but his curiosity that knowing that my modeling is not the most important thing to make this game looks good, but every part of the aspect. So he tried to contribute as a developer. So he asked around, and then he learned, he tried to contribute. So I don't think writing a story is his expertise at this point, but at least he have the very, very good mindset in collaborating. So actually, this is not, we are the only team to practicing like encouraging T-shaped skill and mindset. So in the game industry, team, for example, like Valve, right? And also, what is the name? I could remember one of the project names that I worked on. He belonged to a Western company. So this is the statement that we written out. An expert who is too narrow has difficulty collaborating. All right, because like we say, making a game is not like making the assets. You have to making everything happen at the same time. So if a generalist doesn't have the deep enough in certain area, right, ends up they might not able to collab that much. Everyone just do their parts. So eventually it is not going to make a good product. All right, so let me check the time. All right. So we have been done with the T-shapes. So basically, my point here is I want to make sure all the students or the fresh graduate understand that you graduate from your expertise, which is good, but along your career, along the way, try to expand more. But expand doesn't mean you will lose your values, just become a generalist, but you will become more valuable and more contributor in terms of game developments. All right? Right, so next, I'm not really a developer who hands-on working on a lot of games in the past, but mostly on the environment asset background. But from my understanding and my observations and experience in dealing with different AAA projects, I do realize no matter you are working on AAA games or your own indie games, there are still some overlapping or common values that we could share along. So next, I will share some production value that I learned from the AAA project that I think is very, very relevant for the indie teams or any developer, fresh developer to learn and start to practice it. First one, big, medium, small principle. So me, myself, as an artist background, we tend to practice a lot like design theory, right? And then like how to look at color theory. But I wasn't too sure how many of you here is like with strong art backgrounds. Anyone with an artist background here? You are major in? Nice, that's good. But, oh, you also? Art background, nice. Then you should, okay, there's my son. He's from an art background as well. Okay, but anyway, I believe we have a lot of indie graduates or developer students that very ambitious to make their game, where they focus maybe more on the technical side, maybe the game programmings, the engineer side. So design could be something they see very, very challenging. All right. So I hope this principle will give you some ideas that without spending too much time to excel in that, it will help you able to start to discuss about art and design and then to justify whether or not you are looking at a good piece of art. Second is various approaches. So I wasn't too sure how you guys see the AAA or bigger games in the markets. We might always think that, okay, they have a very streamlined workflow, pipeline, that this is usually how they do things. We just follow, we just excel in that. But that's not entirely right. From my experience, especially after our team get to involve in more the early development on any game projects, we realize they are pretty much like the indie team. They have a very strong indie-spirited mindset that within a small team, we could go crazy and creative to figure out a new way before we kneel down to a more established like pipeline for outsourcing to mass production the asset for the game. All right, let's explain a bit more about big, medium, small principles. Okay, for those who are not from the art background, I try not to go very, very deep. So big, medium, small is one of the principles. It's very, very common that no matter you are in the indie team or in the AAA, this is how they write their art bible or design documents. So the theory is, for example, you can see if any design with this rock, without the big, medium, small differences in terms of the shapes, it just look boring. Nothing wrong about this rock. It's still a rock. I can tell this is a rock, but it's just not good enough. But with more variations happen on the rock design, the shapes, it makes things very, very different. So again, the same theory, when it applies to a more realistic art, you can tell like the big, medium, small, contribute the whole piece of the assets, right? So I'm not teaching the art and design today, but just make you to understand if you want to collaborate with the artist, you want to justify and inspire each other to discuss more about okay, how to make things look good and work for the game. This could be one of the principles that you could practice. One more examples. I realize it's not just applicable on design itself. For example, you are a technical artist who working on PCG, for example. How to scatter a nice looking forest. It's not just using the technical, like just randomly put it up and then I think it's right. No. If you want to have a more ambitious and higher expectation of the art, you can apply these theories and principles to make things look even better. So same goes to compositions or layout or level design. This is the first thing that you could start to look into it. All right. For example, like when I ask some engineer, I say, okay, what is the main and first principles when it comes to gameplay? They will say core mechanic. So this is something pretty much like when it comes to the art and design, big, medium, small. But I know there's more than that. If you find interested, just spend your time, dive deep, master it, then you can become a very, very great developer. All right. Next, I'm going to talk about various approaches. So like I mentioned, my turning point is in learning more on the game developments, which is where I start to involve in the Naughty Dog projects, working on The Last of Us Part 2 as a project lead and also an environment artist. So anyway, this is just some images that I grabbed from the internet. It's not what I've been working on. So for example, I used to be telling that working on the level design, you should always start with the gray box. So this is a gray box. Quick, easy, understandables, right? I always think like that. Until one point, I've been tasking to figure out a small level. And then I asked the client, like, okay, should I follow this step, like show you the gray box first and whatnot? But I realized this is not the only way that we should do things. Eventually the client said, no, actually it's really up to you. Because with no games, you cannot just rely on imaginative. You need to have the visual, you need to have the experience. So any stage that you think could contribute to the game, whether or not it's just a proxy, it's just a play testings, it's just a mock-up. You can always use your ideas, sell your ideas. So the second image is kind of like represent what we eventually make into the game. It's like combined with some nice looking visuals on certain assets, so you can make the players, when they play test itself, he have more immersive experience. But we can remain others non-important asset in a very, very gray box and blocking stage. So like I mentioned, this is a very much like a process-centric, it's like experience. So game is more than just what you are seeing here. It's more like experience that if you think whatever you could make into the final look, it could help the experience for any playtesting and players, yes, you may do it. Right, next is, this is one of the models that done by our awesome teammates in Passion Republics for Elden Ring. From these projects, or from this client, I would say, all the while we are just contributing on the asset creations. Until one point, we got the chance to work on something more integrated earlier in the stage, which is the pre-alpha, the play testings. So at that point, we've been requesting to create a lot of NPC within a very, very short times for the play testing. This has come to a point that I'm just curious, like, hey, I thought we can just put any placeholder, any mannequin, it serves the same purpose, but actually that's not. Because for certain stages, they want to play test with the right NPC, with the right visuals on that point. So this come to another approach that we do not need to require to do the full model eventually, just a rough model, and then we just wrap the concept art on the rough model, and then we proceed for the pre-alpha stage. But of course, what you are seeing here is the final looking of the characters, models. So this shows that most of the time it doesn't mean that you can only follow one stage or one method to create the playtest experience. All right. This is the last point I want to share about the various approaches. Game jam and look developments. So I know you guys might have this perception towards like AAA game, they have higher budgets, they have more times, they can do a lot more things. That's true for certain area, but from my understanding, actually, they have a lot of similarity between, for example, this indie jam. We have a game jam, we have look development, just like what you guys did. So one of the projects, I think they have a very, very smart plan is during the downtime, they try to host a game jam within their team to explore more ideas, right? So having said that, a game jam within the production team is quite unique. So it gives a very indie vibe, and then everyone have the involvement, they can throw in their ideas, and then you brainstorm. But of course, to run this game jam internally, have a better result, go back to the T-shapes. Otherwise, people might just go back to their role. Like, okay, we only have one designer, so I let the designer tell me what to do. But that's not the case. To make a right game jam, everyone should have a T-shaped ideas and understanding. Then everyone could try and hands-on to be a designer. I try my ideas, you can try your ideas. Then eventually you can come up with a very good result. The next one is look developments. So I've been told that gameplay is the king. It's not about the art. Yeah, I think I do agree to a certain point, but because my background as a AAA artist, I do see a lot of clients focus on a lot of the look depth. So my thought is like, why not we just make the gameplay and the art looks good at the same time, all right? So looks development play a very important role here, but of course depends on the budgets and the scope of the game. It can be very, very different. Could, for example, from my experience, for a AAA game, same depth, look depth intentions on just the character face, it could take up to 2 months. 2 months just on the face texture. But when come to a more smaller scope like our indie team in Passion Republic games, we will need to look depth on the character within just 3 weeks, all right? But I think both is work the same because the intention just like within the budget and time given, how much we can push beyond the boundary on the art. So anyway, my point here is there's not only one linear way when it comes to game developments. So I myself from a AAA background, I'm coming here today. I really want to learn along with the community on the indie game community because I think this is one of the very creative community that we can share a lot of knowledge, a lot of ideas, eventually could grow together. Right, towards the end of the sections, I do think this is another topic that I don't think I have enough time to further elaborate on that, which is tools and technical art. So when it comes to games, we realize not just about art, it's not just about gameplay as well. So what I could learn from my experience, like tools and technical arts play a very, very important role that I do see you guys might have a lot of potential to contribute and excel even more on that part. So the toolings and the technical arts is mainly focused on the QC optimizations, which is the quality controls, more procedurals and automations, right? Right, let me recap the takeaways. So autonomous mindset and T-shaped skills. So this is very, very important. No matter you are contributing in the AAAs or your own games or indie games, this play a very important roles moving forwards. And not always theoreticals, but practicals. I used to practice a lot of like workflow pipeline in just one way, but it doesn't make sense at all. When it comes to the real developments, practical plays an important role. You should always know what is the blocker in front of you, talk towards your teams, find a good way. Last is great games come from creative minds. It's not just about your budgets, it's not just about your scope, it's about how much you want to play around and explore and push beyond the boundary. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, so we would like to open a Q&A session. So if any of you have any question, please raise up your hand. Okay.
Can I know how long it will take for optimize the game, and is it easy or it will be harder for optimize it?
Sorry, come again, please. Your question is like how long?
How long it will take for optimize the game? Like we finish the game already, and then for optimize it, how long it will take, and is it easy or harder?
Right. So I could answer these questions based on my understanding is never ever pre-optimize your game, but like what you mentioned, you shouldn't just optimize after the game been done as well. All right. So I would say, bear this in mind. If you understand the full pipeline in your mind, so whenever you achieve for a certain result, let's say I want to achieve for this kind of quality of the art, or this kind of complex mechanics, if you think this is the most important things, that no matter how I shouldn't optimize things, you should discuss with the engineers and the designer to figure out like if all agree with these major core mechanics, and then what is the techniques, and then every other thing should work around towards that core mechanics. So which means whenever you have the alpha or the prototypings, you should always assess and make sure the core mechanics and the visual is looking just right. And then other than that, you can start to optimize and reconsider if you should simplify, you should redesign, yeah. Yeah, sorry. Before that, I just want to share that I forgotten that actually I bought some small gift for anyone who asks me questions. So yes, thanks for Rika. So by the way, I have 3 Passion Republic's notebook with me. Yes. Oh, sorry, that's the second one should be about.
Hello, I want to ask a question. So, as an artist, is it important for the art to be industry standard for the game to stand out from the rest? For as a person trying to be a concept artist, I was always thinking, is my art good enough to be industry standard? And how long does it take to be industry standard? Do you get what I mean?
Okay, I think I sort of understand. So you have sort of like two questions there. So the first question is like, it's okay. The first question is like how well your skill set need to par with the industry standard, right? And then second is like how much time you need to be in that level, right? Okay, so first thing first, I think you need to have a clear understanding what kind of team or company that you want to join, or what kind of game they want to make and contribute. For example, you say you are a concept artist. If you are a big fans of stylized game, you want to be excels and expertise in that route, you want to join those company that makes stylized game, then you should always look for, let's say ArtStation, look for the best stylized artists, compare with them, and see what you are doing now and is lacking off from what they are doing now. All right? If this is not the case, that okay, I'm still wasn't too sure, I don't want to limit myself on just stylized or realistics or fantasy, then this is, you need to do a little bit more work to understand what is your general understanding. Let's say go back to the T shapes, right? So maybe you have your strength maybe on weapons or hard surface design, but to land a job, you want to learn about the experience of game development, maybe on mobile games or certain company have the opening despite what kind of style they are offering. Are you able to at least deal with the entry levels expectations, right? You can always check with the interviewers, okay, what is the entry levels of the arts that requires, what is the task and bit assigned to the artist on that, all right? And then the second question is how much time? Wow, this is tricky. I think it really depends on how much time you really invest to practice over that, right? So I think it's really up to you how much you want to spend on time. I know we always say like 100 hours or 1,000 hours on the practices on certain things, then you could be an excel on that. Yeah.
Okay, anyone else wants to ask question? Okay.
Hello, may I know how do you maintain the creativity while working within the AA studio? I mean, like, how do you get the creative ideas, because we want to maintain the creativity, right? Like, do you get the ideas by playing the games or look at other artists' design? Because it's kind of hard to find a unique design to make for the AAA studios.
Let me think about it. From my experience, I think there's a lot of different ways to improve or keep your creativities, right? Let's focus on just the game developments. Game is about experience. So that's why you can see a very good director, very good game director, they won't encourage you to go and watch just tutorials. Just watch how people make games, how people make design. More or less, they will encourage you to go and learn about life, culture, and then how human being in this world deal with their country situations. So this is where they get the creativity that, how the character design, let's say you want to design a character that's very, very resilient or tough. It's not just about the outlook, it's about their experience. So when you learn about, in certain war zone, there are some kids that have done something incredible to survive. And then from their look, from their experience, this is where you draw the creativity that, okay, I should apply this into my character design, for examples. So actually this is not about like looking at just the fancy looking art. It's about understanding what's happening around you, what you feel and what you sense. Yeah. That's why people like to watch a lot of movie, but not just the entertaining side, but also like more deeper, more grounded storytelling movie. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Pass back. Right. Yes. Any more questions? Do I have time to answer more? No.
Yeah, actually we have time.
Ah.
Just like no.
Yeah, just I hope you guys don't mind if there's no more gift, then you still want to ask questions. Any more questions for me? Okay, cool.
Hi, Yip-sang. I'm Ben.
Hi.
I
Nice
want
to
to
meet
thank you
Ben.
for your talk. It was
Thank
very
you.
inspiring, and I especially the part where you talk about the big, medium, small principle. I think I can use it for my motion graphics and design
Nice.
stuff. Yeah. So I want to ask you more about yourself. Because earlier you mentioned you are from an digital animation background, right? So for motion picture, was it? So what is it?
Yeah.
So what made you pivot from doing motion pictures, animation to game modeling, and then like be more involved in the gaming space?
Interesting. So first thing first, I want to clarify. After I graduate from my college, which is the One Academy, I tend to interview like 2 different companies, which is the first one is like game company, and Passion Republic is my second company that I interview. So after I interview, I decide like, oh, I would like to go for the animation instead of the game. So to answer you, I'm not choosing Passion Republics or this team because they are making games at first point. It's during my second years, the team decided to focus more on the game industry, simply because we realized back then, 10 years ago, in the commercial industry, the timeline is pretty short. So it's very, very challenging for us as an artist to really improve and train up. Then we realized to make a games, you could easily use up like 1, 2, or 3 years. So when the artist is able to onboard to a game development, you could keep practicing your art, right? So yes, I'm not choosing to become a game artist. At first I thought I don't like game, but I think I'm lucky that I'm in the PS3 to PS4 era, that I start to see the graphic improve dramatically. That I start to see that actually doing art for game and commercial doesn't have so much difference for me to improve as an artist. So I try to dive deeper into that. Yeah. I hope this answers your questions. Thank you.